Thanks, Doug. Get things underway here. Can you believe this is the last meeting of the Fall Touchdown Club, week number 14? Has it been a good year? It's been a great year. Exactly right. Some of you are in a better state of mind than others. If you're an OBU fan, you're doing great. Arkansas State still got a shot for the conference championship. UCA, not a bad year for a first-year coach. Arkansas, we're going to have a longer prayer for you today. But it's okay. It's going to be an exciting meeting. Jim Mora had a chance to visit with him last night today. Dynamic guy, and that's why he was a head coach in the NFL. 2 different teams, plus UCLA. Our father was a great coach, and we're excited to have him here today. I can't wait to ask him a lot of good questions. He's got a lot of great stories, and since it is the last meeting, too, we're going to honor a bunch of folks as well. Since this is our last meeting. But, Gary, will you come up and lead us in a word of prayer, please?
Well, we won't make it a long prayer. My prayers haven't worked all year. So I was thinking about praying for Ohio State since my prayers aren't working, you know? There you go. All right. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the day, the opportunities we gather one last time this year to enjoy each other's company. We thank you for the food. Ask you to give us strength today to serve you. Lord, we just thank you for all the good things you place in our lives. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Gary, and thanks for your prayers all year. We appreciate that. Did you guys enjoy the James Treat Award last week? Was that not outstanding? I thought it was an outstanding meeting. Matter of fact, Melissa Nelson's Rex's wife had reached out to the school newspaper, and that's who we had here, a sports writer for the school newspaper. And this was in the school newspaper in Austin this past week. So for the first time, we've actually got some exposure for that great meeting. Mac Brown was outstanding, and Jim, I know you know Mac, and think the world of him too. And so, Melissa, thank you for making that hookup. We appreciate that. Great having that article. If you want that, we'll put it on our website. But it's very complimentary of the club. And we do have one more meeting, Barry Sanders. That's January 10th. Can't wait to see him. We'll be sending you out more information on that. We did have a guest at the meeting last week. His name was Mark McDonald, writing the book about the 50th anniversary of the 69 shootout. This is what he said. He's sent Rex an email. Great to meet you early this week, Rex, and to discover the Little Rock Touchdown Club. Like you, I've been to dozens of award ceremonies and banquets, maybe 200 to 300. The James Street Sportsmanship Luncheon tops them all. The lighting, sound system, signage, brisk pace, you guys do a lot of things right. 2 factors make your club stand out clear of the pack. The considerable presence of women and a certain warm and generous, let's get that. Yeah, go ahead, guys. Yes. And I thought this was great. And the generous spirit that pervades the room. I thought you should package all that goodwill and sell it. You'd be wealthy as an oil sheik. So anyway, so that's sometimes we don't get feedback when people come into our club. But we have an energy in our room. We do have a spirit in our room. And so it was great that Mark shared that with you, Rex. This will be the last time we get to thank our sponsors, so let me do that very quickly. Twin City Limousine, Popeye, thanks for all your hard work. Greg Hatcher is actually here. Greg, thank you so much for your support of both the Touchdown Club and the Broyles Award. You do it both. His son Lane is at Alabama having a great experience. I can't give all the backstories and details, but, of course, Lane's replacement is being honored here today as our Player of the Week from Pulaski Academy. So Kevin's doing something right, and we're excited for Lane, Greg, and we hope he continues to do well there at Alabama. CJRW, Rex, all the CJRW folks are over in Oaklawn today. They've made it official, right? Yes. They're building a giant hotel on the track at Oaklawn, $100 million project. And so it's going to be unbelievable. A hotel right there on site. So that's where all the CGRW folks are. But we thank Mark Raines, Dan Sawyer, and Darren Gray for their support throughout the year. Hey, Coach, were the guys on the buzz okay? Justin and Wes? Good. They were okay, they were okay, yeah. Thank them for their support. And 103 said that. No, listen, you were on there for 30 minutes. My goodness. I do want to thank Tommy and Roger and RJ for y'all's support of the Touchdown Club, too. Couldn't do it without the buzz. Arkansas Urology, Epic Health. Scott Davis, Tim Langford, and the entire staff over at Arkansas Urology. I know Jesse Mason, you come every week, and your wife takes care of me and Tommy, Dr. Gail Jones, Reed Jones. We appreciate her. And 9 Arkansas Urology locations statewide. get tested. Don't put it off. Make it something serious in your life to do every year. But thanks to Arkansas Urology and Epic Health for being a sponsor and our live broadcast every Monday. War Memorial Stadium, Kane Webb, Kevin Kress, Grady Spann, we appreciate them. Great to have War Memorial involved with the Touchdown Club for a second consecutive year. Farm Bureau, Pulaski County, Todd Dennis, Stephen Riker. Todd, thanks so much for your support. It's great to have you back to the Touchdown Club again, and make sure and take advantage of him for your insurance needs, and he's been a great supporter of the Touchdown Club. Dairy Queen, Blake and Nelson Lively, Todd Denton, great to have Dairy Queen on board, and saw that connection last week with all those Texas guys because Dairy Queen is so big in Texas. Verizon Arena, do want to congratulate Michael Marion. As you know, he's the GM of Verizon. He was at the game Saturday in Starkville, and even he was shocked at the score. And I'm still hearing the cowbells in my head from that game. But thank you to Jeremy Flynn, Michael Marion, Janice George, and Verizon Arena, which is now going to be called Simmons Bank Arena. Is it going to be called Simmons Arena or Simmons Bank Arena? Don't know yet, though. Congratulations to them. The Big Red Stores, family owned. Got to say thanks to the brothers David and Doug Hendricks and David Jr. and Landon and Emily and all the gang. It's been great to have you guys here every week and back-to-back years for the Touchdown Club. You guys are growing, and we feel like you're part of the Touchdown Club now. We appreciate your attendance every week, too. Also, Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings, Judy Henry, Charlie Coleman, Freddie Perkins, Jacob Lively, Antoine Phillips, one of the best law firms in the South. Coach, I hadn't had a chance to tell you, but you can see all of our awards up there. Cliff Harris Award, you remember who Cliff is. You remember all those guys. So we wouldn't have a Cliff Harris Award. Matter of fact, our first winner is tearing it up for the Indianapolis Colts. He was the second leading tackler on the team yesterday. So, Pierre Desir. So we're excited about that. We couldn't do it without Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings. Crane Automotive, thank you to Larry Crane and all the guys who've been coming every week. 19 dealerships, over 800 employees. You guys have been great. Been great to have y'all here every week. We appreciate that. Make sure to tell Larry thank you for the support. Been great to have you here. The Democrat Gazette, Wally Hall. Wally's over there covering. He missed his first meeting of the year today because he's covering the press conference. Amanda Copley, thank you so much. Where's Amanda? Thank you so much. And let's do the drawing now, Debbie. We're giving away some All Arkansas Preps banquet tickets, 2 sets of 2. We're telling Coach Moore about that being Kevin Kelly's one of his players. Hunter Henry's going to be the guest speaker.
No.
Okay.
Does anybody not have a ticket?
Anybody not have a ticket? Too late. Just we're going to keep this thing moving. All right, here we go. I'm going to let Debbie read this because I'm going to pull out 2. All right, here we go.
Okay. We have 3844326.
Act like it's a price and ride and act like you like it and you want something. No?
Nope. Okay, how about 3844256?
There we go,
All
right
there
there.
you go.
There's one. All right, one more. There you go.
All right, how about 3844129?
There we go.
Okay.
Very nice. Thank you.
If both of y'all would see me after the meeting up here, I will get your certificates to you.
And Amanda, that's June 15th. This summer, Hunter Henry will be the guest speaker. That's a great banquet as we honor almost 400 high school athletes from all sports. So thank you, the Democrat Gazette, for y'all's sponsorship. You be quiet. You watch it down there. Now he's the big winner down there. Simmons Bank, too. Chris White, I think. Chris, have you made it to every meeting this year, maybe except for one? Chris, thank you so much for your support. We appreciate that. Tell George thank you. Great to have Bill Yee at the head podium today. And we couldn't do this without Simmons Bank, y'all. We have all of our great sponsors, but Simmons is the presenting sponsor. They write the biggest check, and we're excited to announce he just I guess, acquired another bank. So you're up to $16.5 billion in assets in 7 states. So let's give Simmons Bank and all of our great sponsors a round of applause. Coach, we've got the best Touchdown Club sponsorship and team in America. Nobody has more people that jump in, volunteer, support, sponsor than we do. Do want to thank our staff here, Matt Johnson, Fidelity Local 6, back in the back. We appreciate him streaming everything in high definition every week. Great job this year, Matt. Do want to thank the fine folks at the Embassy Suites, Brent Bailey and Ryan Terry. I know that you guys are ready for a break after doing this, setting this room up every Monday. We appreciate them. Dwayne Duncan, who continues to do this year after year. Dwayne, you do a great job. Nobody does it better than you, buddy. Thanks for the hard work this year. RJ Hawk social media. Thanks, RJ, for doing social media for us this year again. And Meredith Scott Hell with CareLink. She's actually doing it off premise now with RJ. So couldn't do it without those two folks with our social media. At LR Touchdown Club is the Twitter account. And then I want to mention our volunteers real quick. These are the ones, Coach, who show up every week free of charge, just to volunteer their time. Let me read their names. As a matter of fact, when I read your names, hold your applause. Stand up. I know we have some that are not here. Lauren Landers, Shelley Seitz, Hope Hankins, Sherry Hall, Sherry Starkey, Carrie Giffen, Maria Bowden, Julie Tabor, Shelley Adams, Christy Harris, our three amigos, Lee Daniels, Louis Nally, Ron Skaggs, Carolyn Basil, Jan Owen, Melissa Nelson, and Marilyn Miller, who both those two have been with us. Marilyn's been here 15 years, and Melissa's been here, I think, 14 years. Let's give all those folks, look at them, round of applause. Couldn't do without them. They are the best in America. They are the best in America. And, of course, leading that whole pack, she does a great job. She works hard. Get up for Debbie Wyman, everybody, our executive director. All right, too, I know some of you are still looking for your shirts. We're going to get that worked out between Debbie and RJ and Cassie Caldwell at Hogman's Game Day Superstore. Thank you for working with us on our Touchdown Club shirts. I think we've done between 80 and 100. So we love to see you wearing those, and thank you, Cassie, and thanks, Steve, too, for the support from Hogman's Game Day Superstore, and RJ will do all the logos, and Debbie will get those things out here real soon. All right, it's time to meet our last All-Arkansas Prep Player of the Week. His name is Braden Bratcher. Braden, come on up. He is a junior quarterback at Pulaski Academy. Now, this honor today, and, Coach, you'll love these numbers. This was November 1st versus Whitehall. He was 22 of 33 for 377 yards and 7 touchdowns. He also rushed for 63 yards on 5 carries for a total of 440 total yards in that game. If you saw the game Friday night against McClellan, which we thought was going to be a battle, Coach, he rushes 81 yards for a touchdown. Then he's 19 of 29 for 324 yards and 5 touchdowns. So he counted for 6 touchdowns, over 400 yards of total offense, and their 58-8 win over McClellan. They're 2 games away from their 5th consecutive state championships, and Coach Moore got a chance to visit with Kevin Kelly. But when I asked Kevin about Braden, I said, tell me something about Braden. He said, with all those stats you just read, he's even a better young man. So what a great way to finish out our year. Let's give a Touchdown Club welcome to Braden Bratcher. He's a good-looking quarterback, and I asked how many girlfriends he had. He said he only had 1. So I said, that's more than us linebackers had back in the day. I do want to mention some other folks that are here as well. Paige and Brian are Braden's mom and dad. Paige, Brian, thank you for being here today. I know you're proud of your son, and he's an excellent young man. And what's great is Kevin Kelly's back here with his entire staff. Now, they were here last week, too, as we honor one of your players for the James Treat Award. So it's always great to have them. Kevin Kelly, Madison Taylor, Blake Amsler, Anthony Lucas, Jason Wyatt, Chris Peterson, Adam Thrash. Please stand. Let's give them a round of applause. I know Alicia Castleberry is also the Dean of Students is here, but that's a great group of folks supporting you, and we're proud that you guys are a member of the Touchdown Club. I love being able to bring up coaches like you guys and Kevin to talk to Jim Moore about what you do and how successful you've been. So congratulations, Braden, and we hope you have a continued success in the high school playoffs. All right, for the last time of the year, the weekend recap. Give it up for Rex Nelson, everybody. He worked so hard on this.
I'm glad David read part of that email that Mark McDonald sent me. Mark was a sports writer for many years for the Dallas Morning News. He's covered every big football banquet in the football crazy state of Texas. And when he says this one ranks above anything he has ever covered, I think that says a lot. And I think it says we also need to give a Little Rock Touchdown Club thanks to David Basil for another year of what he's done for this club. You know, as Mark pointed out, from lighting to sound, David, you get it all done. It's just perfect. All right, now on this recap, you know, I try to make this fun every week, and I've got to tell you, it is a lot more fun when the Hogs are winning. As David said, you know, all of us, we mentioned Michael Marion. We followed different schools, but I know the majority our Razorback fans. Jim Rasco, our historian, brought me some old stuff on the two Ouachita teams that beat the University of Arkansas. This might have been the year we should have scheduled Arkansas again, Jim. But, you know, we all follow different themes, but it's better when Arkansas is winning, and things are going to get better. But thank you for supporting all of the college programs and for supporting high school football, because we're a touchdown club. And so I mean it when I say get out and see a college football game on Saturdays and support our teams at whatever level. All right, let's dive in. We'll make this real quick. Mississippi State 52, Arkansas 6. Nick Fitzgerald led 6 consecutive touchdown drives. Chad Morris, then, we counted, uses the word unacceptable 9, count them 9 times in 5 minutes. Arkansas went 3-9 in 2013, Coach Bielema's first year. If the Hogs lose Friday, it will be the first 10-loss season in school history. The last time the school had only 2 wins was 1952. With that bit of history, we'll keep moving. Fitzgerald did have just 2 SEC touchdown passes in conference games coming in. He has 4 against Arkansas. Mississippi State outgains Arkansas 287-69 rushing, 188-150 passing, 475 to 219 overall. Arkansas fails to score a TD against both Auburn and Mississippi State this year. The last time Arkansas failed to score TDs in 2 games was in 2001. So Mississippi State 7-4, 3-4 in the conference, and won for the 6th time in the past 7 games against the Hogs. All right, enough of that. Arkansas State, UCA, and, Jesse, UAPB all win on the same Saturday. How about that? First time that's happened this year. Arkansas State goes to 7-4 overall. They're 4-3 in the conference following a 31-17 victory over Louisiana Monroe, which falls to 6-5 and 4-3. Now, if Arkansas State can beat Texas State, my wife's alma mater, on Saturday, and if Monroe can beat Lafayette, the Red Wolves will be in the first Sun Belt Championship game. First year they've had a conference championship game. They'll be on the road, but if those 2 things happen, they're in. Their great quarterback, Justice Hansen, completed his first 7 passes of the game. He finished 21 of 27, 246 yards and 3 touchdowns. UCA avoids a losing season with a 16-7 win at Abilene Christian. Bears finished 6-5 overall, 5-4 in conference. They now have 9 consecutive seasons without a losing record. That's impressive. The victory ended a 3-game losing streak. Luke Hales, who was pressed into duty due to injuries to the quarterbacks in front of him, good day, 23 of 41 passing, 183 yards. And, as I said, UAPB breaks its 8-game losing streak. They finished 2-9, 1-6 in the SWAC, 15-10 at Texas Southern, as senior kicker Jamie Gillian makes 5 field goals for all of the UAPB points. However you can get them, right, Coach? They win it by a final score of 15-10. At the Division II level, Harding ends the season 9-3, a tough 21-19 loss at 12-0 Ferris State up in Michigan. Now, Harding had upset them up there last year as they went to the semifinals on a last-second field goal, but fell just short this time. Ferris led 21-0 in the 3rd quarter of that game. Harding really came on strong, and Ferris barely hangs on at the end to go to 12-0. Now, Ouachita got a bye, remember. They're 11-0. They play the University of Indianapolis, UIndy. They will play that one in Arkadelphia at 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. And we had 2 of our Division II teams make bowl games. I promised Bill Lawrence I'd get this down. How about those darn boll weevils? They will be playing Emporia State from Kansas December 1st down in the Corsicana Bowl in Corsicana, Texas. And there's a bowl game at Texarkana that Southern Arkansas University will be in. All right, on to the SEC. Missouri goes to 7-4, this week's opponent, of course, 3-4 overall, 50-17 over Tennessee. Tough times at Tennessee these days, too. UT is 5-6 overall, 2-5 in conference. By the way, that is the 2nd consecutive year for that game to end with that score, interestingly enough, 50-17. And sweet revenge for offensive coordinator Derek Dooley from Missouri. You remember he was the head coach at Tennessee from 2010 to 2012, where he was 15-21. Alabama 11-0, 50-17 over the Citadel in a game that was tied somehow at halftime. Nick had to have something to complain about going into the Iron Bowl, right? So that gives him something. Tua passes for 340 yards in that game. Now, this was beat up on Cupcake Week for the SEC. They usually do that before their rivalry week games. So you have Georgia go to 10-1 with a 66-27 win over UMass. You have Florida go to 8-3 with a 63-10 win over Idaho. You have Kentucky go to 8-3 with a 34-23 win over a good Middle Tennessee State team. You have the Aggies from Texas A&M go to 7-4 with a 41-20 win over UAB, which had come into the game with a 9-1 record. That's a great story because you'll remember they did away with that football program for a few years and brought it back. And they're 9-2. I think that's one of the best stories in college football right now. You had South Carolina go to 6-4 with a 49-9 win over Tennessee Chattanooga. You had LSU go to 9-2 with a 42-10 win over Rice. You had Auburn go to 7-4 with a 53-0 shutout of Liberty. And then Vanderbilt is now 5-6, 2-5 in the conference, beating Ole Miss, which is also 5-6 and 2-5, 36-29 in overtime in Nashville. So a lot of good TV for you starting on a Thursday. Not only do you have 3 NFL games, but you have the Rotten Egg Bowl that night, Mississippi State at Ole Miss. Then you've got Arkansas at Missouri, if you can stomach it with your leftovers on Friday. That's the Friday games. Then lots of rivalry games on Saturday. Florida at Florida State, Georgia Tech at Georgia, Auburn at Alabama, Tennessee at Vanderbilt, South Carolina at Clemson, Kentucky at Louisville, and LSU at Texas A&M. Only one game in the state, and I mentioned it, and we need you because the students are going to be gone for Thanksgiving. So it's 10-1 UIndy at 11-0 Ouachita, Cliff Harris Stadium, 1 o'clock on Saturday for the last time this season. I urge you, get out and see a college football game. Thanks, everybody, for a great year.
Thanks, Rex. Nobody does it better than Rex. Works very hard. That's a lot of work on the weekends, Rex. We appreciate you. All right, without further ado, by the way, breaking news here. Chad Morris says Cameron Curl and Ryan Pulley have both been suspended from the team. Says their actions were completely unacceptable. Yeah, well, Coach and I, we talked about that last night. That's the appropriate thing. For those who don't know, I think most everybody knows the story. And they may be fine kids. They made a mistake, and they have to pay the consequences, so that's a good move by Coach Morris. All right, another guy who works very hard for us every year in researching and finding out amazing stats and information about our speaker. Please give it up one last time. Jim Rasco, everybody.
Okay, today's guest speaker is retired NFL and college head coach Jim L. Mora, not to be confused with his father, retired NFL head coach Jim E. Mora. The elder Jim Mora is the man famous for the comments, playoffs, and if you don't remember that quote, when you get home tonight, just go to YouTube and type in 3 words, Jim Mora playoffs. Now, that's his dad. This 22-second video pops up will refresh your memory. I will add that Jim's father picked up 125 victories as an NFL coach with the Saints and the Colts. Okay, now let's go back to September 22nd, 1978. Our speaker was in the 11th grade, and his dad was the defensive line coach for the Seattle Seahawks. So the Mora family was living in Bellevue, which is located just across Lake Washington from Seattle. Now, I was afraid these 2 photos wouldn't show up clearly on the screen, so we didn't try to put them up. But the first photo in the Seattle Times shows our speaker wearing number 24. This is him down on one knee, making a tackle as a defensive back for Bellevue's Interlake High School Saints. Then 2 months later, his photo appears again, this time in a Class AAA playoff game in Memorial Stadium. I showed him this picture beforehand. He had never seen this one. He's got his cute little towel on right here as a defensive back. And there went the lights.
lights. You got to lean them back up. Can you read in the dark, Jim?
Yeah, I think so. Do me a.
What's this teamwork?
I got to find my notes. Here we go. Okay. All right, let's switch to basketball. On December 19th, 1978, Jim Mora scored the first 6 points for Interlake High and ended up the second leading scorer for the Saints by scoring 12 points in his team's 64-45 victory over Redmond High. Remember those 12 points?
I don't remember anything. I can tell you this. I'm not retired. It's the only thing that's caught my ear so far.
Okay, in between jobs. Now to Jim's senior season in 1979, Jim was one of 2 players on his team that was named to the preseason All-State team. The offensive star of his team was quarterback Steve Pallure, who would go on to play his college ball at Washington and then on to the NFL with the Dallas Cowboys. The defensive All-Stater was Jim Mora, 6 feet, 185 pounds. The Seattle Times said that Mora could play defensive back at a big school. Game write-ups that I found mentioned that co-captain Mora was also a starter as an offensive halfback and was a top pass receiver. I don't have time for any individual game details regarding his senior year in basketball, but I will state that Jim, again, was a starter for Bellevue High. Okay, now let's cover Jim's 4 years playing for the University of Washington. 1980, as a freshman, Jim wore number 6 and was a backup free safety as Washington won the Pac-10 and played Michigan in the Rose Bowl. In 1981, Jim moved to left cornerback, changed his uniform number to 96, and earned his first of 3 letters. Washington repeated as Pac-10 champs and finished as the number 10 team in the nation by beating Iowa 28-10 in the Rose Bowl. Speaking of Iowa, all of you who were here last year on October the 15th will remember that our speaker that day played for Iowa. It was a 4-year starter as a defensive back. Who can name that defensive back from Iowa? Bob Stoops, that's right, number 41. Okay, in 1982, Jim was back at safety, and Washington went 10-2, defeating Maryland in the Aloha Bowl and finished ranked number 7 in the nation. 1983, as a senior, Jim was moved outside linebacker, and Washington returned to the Aloha Bowl. Jim then paid his coaching dues by serving for 19 years as an NFL assistant with the Chargers, the Saints, and the 49ers. 2004, Jim was named the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. In his first season, the Falcons won the NFC South Division and reached the NFC Championship game, losing to the Philadelphia Eagles 27-10. In 2009, Jim was named head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. In 2012, Jim became the head coach of the UCLA Bruins. In his first season, the Bruins won the South Division of the Pac-12 and played in the Holiday Bowl. In 2013, UCLA won 10 games, including the Sun Bowl, and finished number 16 in the nation. In 2014, UCLA again won 10 games, this time winning the Alamo Bowl and finished ranked number 10 in the nation. Okay, those are the highlights. I've run out of time. I know you'd rather hear more from our guests and less from me, so here is Coach Jim Mora.
Check, check. Make sure that mic's working. Media to these on, Matt. Check, check. See if yours.
Hello.
Gotcha.
You told me things I'd never known about myself. And one thing is that I'm retired. I didn't know I was retired.
He didn't like that. He didn't like that,
Goodness,
Jim.
I didn't like that
He didn't
at
hear
all.
anything else you said.
That's
the whole,
all I heard after
whole
that.
introduction except for that.
And we beat Iowa 28-0. No, you said 28-10. I'm not being critical. No, you know what? There you go. I appreciate that history lesson. Thank you. That was fantastic.
Here, Coach, I'm going to get your chair fixed.
My chair's good. We can stand. We can walk around.
You're easy. Have a seat there. Now, I think right off the bat, let me ask you this. Is today a special day for you?
Well, it's an interesting day for me.
I think it's your birthday, isn't it?
But I don't want any. Let me tell you about my birthday, okay? You probably don't know
Go ahead.
this.
No.
Okay. Not a good day.
Not a good day.
Not a good day. So 1 year ago yesterday, we lost to USC. 1 year ago today, I got fired from UCLA. So, no, I'm not celebrating anything.
You're at a better place today.
I am. I'm
Happy
happy to be.
birthday to
you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Coach Mora. Happy birthday to you.
All right. How about that?
Thank you. You absolutely made it a better day for me. I really appreciate that.
I'm sure Coach did not imagine getting a happy birthday sung to him in Little Rock, Arkansas during the month of November.
I appreciate that.
Great to have you. This is your first time in Arkansas, right?
You know, I believe it is. When we were driving in from the airport last night, I didn't realize how many connections I actually had to Arkansas through my coaching career. But as I woke up this morning, I thought about it. I don't know that I've ever been in the state of Arkansas. You know, and when you're in the NFL, you go out on the road and you're working out players all over the country, but I don't know that I ever made a visit to Arkansas. I may be wrong, but I think this is my first actual day here, and it's fantastic. And I appreciate the opportunity to come to speak to you people and spend some time with you. It's a true honor. When I got this invitation, I was like, I get to go to Little Rock, Arkansas, and talk football. I mean, that's like going to heaven and talking and talking to God. Thank you.
I do want to mention real quick, where's Wes at? Where's Wes Sutton? Let's give a round of applause for Wes Sutton for what he does throughout the year. So Wes goes by and picks up all of our guest speakers. I did it last night, but the connection with Wes is that Wes used to work for Jimmy Sexton, and that is your agent.
That is my agent.
And Jimmy actually spoke here years ago, probably about 10 years, before he became famous and rich. And but that's okay. So real quick on the Arkansas connections, I brought up the fact that I played with Billy Ray Smith and Gary Anderson, and they actually went to San Diego those first few years in the NFL where you were an assistant coach.
Right. So I coached Billy Ray. I was working with the defense, and actually I'm still pretty close with Billy Ray. And then Gary was a really good running back for us there. A great story about Billy, I was telling you this last night, is, you know, I love Billy, and he's a good man. He was a heck of a linebacker, but did you guys know he could also kick? He was a kicker. So we were playing the Dallas Cowboys in a preseason game, and our kicker gets hurt. And we have to kick like a 53-yarder to win the game at the end. It's a preseason game, so it's no big deal, but to win the game. And I remember, I think it was Coach Coryell said, does anyone know how to kick? You know? And Billy, do you guys remember Coach Coryell, how he talked kind of like that? And Billy Ray said, I'll kick it. And so Billy goes out there, and he's a barefoot kicker, soccer style, and he takes his shoe off, and he had tape on his ankles because they all tape back there, and that we had to call timeout because it was illegal to kick with tape on your ankles. And Billy goes over to the sideline, cuts the tape off with the tape cutters, goes out there and kicks a 53-yarder. Number 54 linebacker Billy Ray Smith kicking a 53 or 54-yarder to win a game for us. So, yeah. And then Gary was fun. Boy, he could run. He had rare speed for those days, and he was an elusive guy.
I also want to mention for the fact that, you know, we honor a couple of guys that, because your dad was at New Orleans at the time, in the late 80s, the minute I saw that, I thought of my old teammate, Wayne Martin, and Willie Rofe, who we honor each year with the Willie Rofe Award. Talk about those two guys.
I was with both of those guys in New Orleans when I coached with my dad, and, Wayne wore number 93 and was a great player. You remember that defense was spectacular. We had called it the Dome Patrol, those four linebackers that all went to the Pro Bowl. But they went to the Pro Bowl because they played behind great defensive line like Wayne Martin. We played a 3-4 defense, and he played what we call a 4-eye, was inside shade of the tackle, and he was just dominant, an absolutely dominant player. And then Willie came in, and obviously now he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but, you know, he always walked on his toes. But for a big man, he was probably the most athletic big man of his day, and just a generous soul. And actually I talked to my dad about him last night, and they were together a couple weeks ago. He said, Willie's put on a few. So, yeah. But
well, tell him you said that.
No, don't tell him my dad said that. Not that I said that. My dad and Willie are still very, very close.
Another name I brought up, I was telling Coach all the folks we had in here, me and Joe Green, Too Tall Jones, Larry Zonker, Earl Campbell.
You guys are slumming today.
And then I mentioned Steve Atwater, and you go, well, I'm buddies with Steve. And
oh, good buddies with Steve. When I was coaching for the Falcons, Steve lived in my neighborhood, and we got to know each other extremely well. Of course, I coached against him many, many times. He's got 3 young boys. They're not young anymore. That are just tremendous athletes that are really good friends with my kids. And saw Steve a couple weeks ago, and I know you guys had him in here. How about that guy at that size playing defensive back in the NFL? You guys remember the hit he had on Monday Night Football against Kansas City? Yeah, we
replayed it. Yeah,
Did you? I show that every year to the defensive backs. I love that hit. And he was mic'd up, which made it even better. Yeah.
And then one other name. I'm sitting in the car last night with Coach outside the hotel, and Coach says, "Wait a minute. do you know a guy named Bobby Fields? And I said, I don't really, I'm not from here. And ended up being one of the great defensive backs from those great Razorback teams in the 60s.
Got a couple of his teammates
Bruce
here.
James was his teammate. It was just after Gary Adams. And talk about Bobby and what his connection to you is.
Well, so Bobby played at Arkansas in the late 60s, I believe. Was it late 60s or early 70s? You could have said early 70s and made yourself a little younger there. Late 60s. And so Bobby was at UCLA when I was hired. He was the associate athletic director in charge of football. And I was new to college football. I'd spent my career in the NFL. And Bobby mentored me through those first few years and remains a really good friend. As a matter of fact, I just sent him a text with our picture, and he said to say hello. He's married to Valerie. Bobby's not even the best coach in his family. Bobby's a heck of a coach, but his wife, Val Condudos, is a 7-time national champion gymnastics coach at UCLA. Just retired and wrote a great book. I'd recommend reading it if you haven't. I have so many ties to Arkansas that I just didn't really realize.
It was great that we connected that way last night with all those names. That's what the neat thing about the coaching community, that especially when you've been around as long as you have and been in different places, the odds are you're going to come across coaches and players. And that's what I want to ask too. Right now, he's working for ESPN, and talk about what you do every Saturday and how surprising it was, how much game action you get to see.
I don't know. I can't really call it working. It's not working, and it's not really a job. If you like football, you'd want to do what I'm getting to do, and I like football. I get to Bristol at noon, or I get to ESPN
Connecticut
at noon on Saturday. That's where ESPN in Bristol, Connecticut. The only hard part is flying from L.A. to Bristol every week. But from noon to midnight, okay, I sit in front of 12 monitors in a comfortable chair, and I watch football games, college football games, and it's just unbelievable. Then every hour I just get on, go sit in another chair, and there's a camera, and I just talk about what I just saw. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this. But it's really amazing because I've seen more football plays in the last 11 weeks than I have in my entire life. And my entire life has been about coaching, but it's been a great opportunity to learn what people are doing, what trends are transpiring, where the game's going, people's philosophies. I keep a log of decisions that are being made during games that I think are good decisions, or maybe decisions that should have been made in another way that hopefully, if I'm retired, but if I step out of retirement and get another chance, that maybe can help me do a better job down the road. But it's a tremendous time. And then on Sundays I do a show called Who's In, where we talk about really the top 4 teams, vying for the top 6, but the top 4 for the college football playoff.
I do want to, before we go back, a couple things I want to talk about, because we talked about Arkansas. I do want to make real quick, because it just hit me. I saw a couple, and I failed to mention this. We don't have many here today, but if you are a founding member of the Touchdown Club, board member, or serve on our board, will you please stand, and let's recognize those that are here. Bruce, Rex, Andrew, Bob. Everybody stand up who's a board member. Wes in the back. Jim. Just want to thank those folks. We have a great group of founders and board members. Last time we started talking about Arkansas. So you saw what's happened. You heard what Rex said about where we are as a program. You're a guy who went into UCLA. You've seen this before. Your thoughts on Chad Morris and where this program is?
Well, I think that although it's hard, it's important to have some patience and let him work to create the culture that he envisions for Arkansas football and the great history that the Razorbacks have. I think he took a very profound step today when he suspended those 2 young men. That's always hard to do as a coach because you get very close to your players. But I'm sure you all know the story that these 2 young men were out before the game, and they were taking some photos with some of the cheer squad from the opponent. And really, that's just unacceptable. And I guess he said that 9 times in 5 minutes. So anyway, when they are young men, and they are going to make mistakes. But when you're trying to establish a culture, you have to be very strict to your standards. You can't compromise the standards. You have to protect them with the vigilance, and sometimes that means making tough decisions like he had to make today to suspend those 2 young men. When I went to UCLA, they had a reputation of being soft, not a tough school. And they had a tradition. It was called, is that an understatement? You're kind of chuckling there. I was trying to put it nicely. And they had a tradition of, they called it going over the wall. So go over the wall. And during bowl season, the players would just decide one day that they were not going to practice. And like 20 minutes into practice, they'd just leave. They'd leave practice. Yeah, I mean, and they called it going over the wall because I guess the first time they did it, they just climbed over the wall and they left. And so I had taken over as the head coach, and I wasn't coaching the bowl game that year, so I was just observing. And they went over the wall. They left practice. So Dan Guerrero, who's the athletic director and a really great man, he said, "Hey, Jim, can you go address the media on this going over the wall thing?" And I said, "Well, sure, absolutely." And so I went down. They said, they went over the wall. What do you think? What are you going to do if they go over the wall? I said, "They're not going over the wall." And he said, what if they do? I said, "Well, then they should go over the wall. When they get to the other side, what they need to do is they need to go to their locker, and they need to get whatever is their personal stuff and put it in a bag, and they need to get their ass out of here because they're never coming back on this football field." And everyone thought that was kind of harsh. And I'm like, harsh? And so I coached, or I worked for, or played for, and worked for, and grew up with the great Don James. You guys remember Coach Don James, who's in the College Football Hall of Fame, and I've known him since I was 6, but I played for him at Washington, and we had good teams. And one of the reporters asked me, he says, "What would Coach James have done had you guys decided to go over the wall?" And I said, I don't understand your question. And he goes, it's a pretty simple question. What would Coach James have done if you guys had gone over the wall? I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was being a jerk, obviously. And he says, "Would you?" And I go, "We wouldn't have gone over the wall. We wouldn't have fought that way. We were trying to win national championships. We were trying to go to Rose Bowls. We were trying to be the best that we could be. Don James would have never had to deal with that. It wasn't in our mindset." And so I think what you'll find with Chad is that if he can create that mindset, which is much more difficult these days just because of the I hate to use the word the millennial, but the mindset of the millennial, okay? But if he can create that, then this program will get back on track because you can recruit here, you've got great facilities, you've got great tradition. I mean, it's the Arkansas Razorbacks, for goodness sakes, So I think it's hard in the SEC. It's hard in this day in sports because of the high salaries to have some patience. But let's look for the small victories. And I think, although it was difficult for him today, I think today was a small victory for Coach Morris.
I thought you said something pretty interesting before the meeting. You were talking about the difference in South versus West when you were at UCLA, about football players in general and recruiting, and your observations of South versus West.
Well, I recruited the South at UCLA, and we had some success, not great success. It's hard to take a kid out of the South and bring him to the West Coast. They like to take that official visit. They like that weekend in L.A., but when it comes time to put pen to paper, that was tough to do. But we did get some young men out of the South. But I spent time in New Orleans with the Saints. I spent time in Atlanta with the Falcons, and I've been in the South a lot. But there is a difference, and there's a couple differences, and it's become very evident to me this year in actually watching a lot of games. Number one, the Pac-12 and teams out west struggle because we don't have as many big men. We don't get as many big, athletic guys like Willie or Dan Hampton that can really play at a high level. I don't know if that's because, at an early age, as their mom is, making them a kale salad and a smoothie instead of, wings and some fried food. But it's hard to find the big guys. And then football in the South is just so incredibly important. There's a lot of distractions in California. And I don't say that in a negative way. It's a wonderful place. But in the South, football is just it's so important. You would recruit kids in the South, and they would look you in the eye, and it was yes sir, no sir, and they'd put their phones down, which is almost impossible to get a kid to do now. In other parts of the country, when you're recruiting a kid, they're kind of talking to you, but they're checking their phone all the time, and it's different. But you come down to the South, it's always yes sir, no sir, and they're right with you, and they're very serious. And it's fun to try to populate your young men with kids from the South. I know this. If I ever get another chance to coach, which I hope I do, I'll be spending a lot of time in the South trying to get kids that just die to play football because they understand, what it can do for their life. Not just in the present, but in the future. Can I interrupt you? I'm just going to keep interrupting you. And that's one of the great things about coaching college football. I was lucky to be a head coach in the NFL twice, and people have said, what's the difference between coaching in the NFL and coaching in college, and would you ever go back to the NFL? My answer is never say never, but I absolutely prefer college to the NFL for several reasons. Number one, we all know that winning is the most important thing for a coach, but there are other things that are nipping at the heels, and you have a responsibility as a college football coach to make sure that you're helping prepare your student athlete for his future. In the NFL, I saw so many careers end, and then successes that we didn't often read about, but failures that we often did. So I understand the difference between the guy that goes on after his career and has success and the guy that fails, and it's the preparation that really started back in college. And I think as a college coach, you have the ability to really impact a young man's life forever by helping them prepare for a career after football. So that's a way to, feel good about yourself if you're not winning every week. You have a responsibility to the parents that are sending their kid to you to help them develop into the young man, or develop from the young man into the man that they dreamed that their son would be. And those are responsibilities that, I embraced and I loved. And it made coaching college football fun when a kid would walk into your office and sit on your couch and you say, hey, what's up? You need anything? He said, no. And after a while, I'd realize they just wanted to be around a father figure. In California, many of my athletes were inner city kids from single-parent families that had been told most of their life that they would not have a chance, had not been given opportunities, were staring at failure in the face, but somehow they found a way to get to UCLA. But they still had those moments that they just wanted to be around a male figure, a father figure, and they just wanted to sit there. And to me, that was so darn rewarding. And that's one, a couple of the reasons I love college football. The other is I'd rather deal with moms and dads than wives and agents. I sit here, I see, how proud you are of your son, and I mean, it's just like, I feel you. It's awesome. It's awesome to take a guy like you, what you've done, and go, God, I can get him in my program. We can help him prepare for the rest of his life, and you feel indebted to the parents, and it's awesome, man. And then, I know I'm going to keep going. Okay, I'm going to tell you another thing about college football that's so awesome. And someone asked me this. They go, what's the best, after like my first game, what was the best or biggest difference today coaching college football versus your games in the NFL? I said, we had a band. I mean, the band, man, when we scored and the band started playing, I said, that was awesome. Or before the game, the band marched out and we're in pregame warm-ups and there's like a band playing. You don't get that in the NFL. It was great.
I didn't want to. Is it your sister? I didn't get it. What's her name?
And that's his brother. You can tell right there.
Yeah. What brother?
I bet your grandparents, right?
What's your name?
Yes, ma'am.
Luke and Olivia. Thank you for being here. I didn't know you guys. Let's give a round of applause for Luke and Olivia for being here, supporting their brother. That's awesome. All right, let's real quick. So this guy's had a chance to be a head coach at 2 NFL teams, which is pretty remarkable, and a college team. The college atmosphere. We talk about this quite a bit. You go to UCLA, turn that program around, got it back on a winning track, which it had not been since Terry Donahue. 2 double-digit seasons, you win 10 games.
Yeah, I've only done that once. How about that in 100 years at UCLA football? It was only the second time we'd won 10 back-to-back.
2 years later, you're out.
Well,
Right? Is that right? 2 years later, you're out.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just talking about the environment of college football and the demands on winning and how quick you pull the trigger. The other part of that is the money part of it, Jim. Is that, and I know what your buyout was. It was Jimmy Sexton is your agent, so he's going to make sure that you get a big buyout. What do you think now, looking back, going? Even though I know you're getting paid about that, but is that a good business model for college versus the NFL?
Well, the NFL, your contracts are 100% guaranteed. So let's say you sign a 5-year deal for $25 million and you get fired after your first year, they owe you $20 million, and they're going to pay you every single penny. Now, there's an offset if you take another job. There's an offset. But that's just the business. It's basically a guaranteed contract. Typically in college football, you're paid a percentage. I never coached for money. Okay, I tell you what, I never looked at a paycheck, never in my career. I don't even know how much I made at UCLA. I let Jimmy deal with it, and my wife, I didn't even think about it.
I guarantee you she knows, right?
Yeah, no, because that wasn't that. If I could provide for my family and I was doing what I wanted to do, that was enough. But I was very fortunate, obviously. But yeah, I mean, you're not going to attract the great coaches without providing them some security. You know, it's a fickle business, and these coaches are getting paid a lot of money now, and that's why there is pressure, and that's why there is change if they're not having success.
You believe that players should get more money?
I think that is. I was hoping you'd ask that question. I think it's one of the most complex questions that we are facing right now in college football. I do believe that college football players are very fortunate that they are getting their education paid for, these amazing opportunities to learn and grow and network and create a great future that's being paid for by the university, but there's also sacrifices that they're making. I don't think if you haven't played Division I football in this day and age, you can understand the time commitments and the demands that are put on these young men are extraordinary. I mean, incredibly difficult for them. I think that there should be a way to compensate them. Here's the problem I have. I had a young man named Miles Jack who now plays for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who was just a great, great football player. I'd known him since he was 12 years old, and we lived in Georgia. Then when I moved to Seattle, he moved to Seattle, and then I recruited him to UCLA. You know, he didn't come from a wealthy family, and he'd walk through the bookstore, and there'd be a number 30 jersey there, which is the number he wore. You know, it was for sale for $85 that someone was going to buy and someone was going to profit off of, and he'd go up to the Taco Bell and have to scrounge through his pockets to find 99 cents to buy a bean and cheese burrito. And that just didn't seem right to me, you know. And but it's so complex because not everybody can afford to pay players. You know, Arkansas is different than Idaho. Okay, I think I turned my phone. Is that my phone? Oh my goodness, that right, that's a fine. I would get absolutely fined. I'd be running stairs in the morning. Chad would suspend me. I mean, whew.
Go ahead.
But no, I think there has to be some way that we can, you know, we can enhance these young men's ability to lead more of a normal student life when they're playing football. I think it's a tragic thing when a player who's spending, you know, 40, 50 hours a week. I know there's a 20-hour rule, but it's really 40 or 50 hours a week on football. Can't, you know, take his girlfriend out to a movie and buy her a pizza because he has no money left from his scholarship check. But I don't know how to do it. I don't. There's someone a lot smarter than me is going to have to figure it out.
Do you want to talk about your dad? What a unique situation for you. You mentioned Don James. By the way, the Broyles Award is December 4th. It was great. Did you guys hear about the new contract for Les Miles at Kansas? Jeff Long put in there, if he has an assistant that wins the Broyles Award, he gets a $50,000 bonus. And a coach that actually had some of his assistants at UCLA that were Broyles Award nominees. But your dad obviously got a chance to coach with Don James. But talk about your dad and his career and how that impacted your life and what kind of guy or relationship you had with him.
My dad's a Marine, and I have an amazing relationship with him. I talk to him almost daily. He's obviously, you know, my toughest critic, but my biggest booster as well. I got a chance to coach for him in New Orleans for 5 years, and it was interesting. There were some days that were fantastic, and there were some days that were not great, such as we're playing the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I'm the defensive back coach, okay, and that's, you know, bad things can happen back there, right? Especially at the end of the games. We're playing the Vikings, and they score at the end of the game to win the game. And, you know, you kind of wait for the film to come in before you can really figure out what happened. And the film, we'd run out of film. Like, they didn't get that last play. So my dad said, you know what happened? And I'm like, I think I made something up, you know. Well, my dad was one of those guys that was going to, you know, cover every base. So he called Minnesota. He got the film sent in and found out that I had not been real truthful. And that was a bad, not only head coach, assistant coach, but father-son day for me. But my dad is a really good man. He always coached with a lot of integrity. He was always very honest. I'm sure I look around, I see the age group here. I know a lot of you have probably seen a lot of his moments, his blow-ups, but he was a passionate and compassionate man who really cared about his players. He was a stickler for detail. He was tough. He had high standards. He told me one time that he wished he'd have gotten a little bit closer to his players. That's one of the things that he feels he did wrong. He didn't develop enough of a bond with them. But I was very fortunate to have him as a role model. Every year that I was coaching, there would be about a 3-week stretch where we would not talk because we'd get in an argument, and my mom would have to step in, and she'd mediate. I don't know. I used to emphasize, you got to hustle, you got to tackle. He'd hear me emphasize these things, and then he'd come to our games, and after the game, he'd come in my office, and he'd be, win or lose, supportive. You guys played great. You played hard. I'm proud of you, all that stuff. But I made the biggest mistake in the world, and I gave him access to our game film. So he would go home then on Sunday and Monday, and he'd watch the game. He'd watch it like 15 times, okay? And on Monday night, coming home from work, I'd usually have a conversation with him. And one time he says, you talk about you guys you're hustling, and I see this number 24, and his lazy ass is loafing across the field. You can't tell me you're hustling. If you're going to, emphasize, you better demand it. And you're talking about wrapping up and tackling. At number 30, he's going in there with their shoulder and missing tackles, and he was getting on me. And I don't know if the phone just disconnected or what, but we went like 3 weeks, honestly, without talking. And finally, my mom says, listen, I'm out of here. You guys figured out for yourselves. And, we always came back. But it was great to have a guy like that who was going to keep me in check and prop me up when I needed it.
Speaking of young men, we've got Braden down here who's obviously may lead his team to a state championship. Get a kid like that. He's a junior. He's got another year to go. You recruited at UCLA. You saw these guys in the NFL. What would you tell a young man right now who's obviously already doing the right things over at Pulaski Academy, but what's kind of advice you'd give a young man like that?
I mean, my first advice is always study. I talked about, when I talk to young people, I talk about the 4 poisons that I think can derail a student athlete, and I talk about number 1, sexual misconduct, and I'm going to talk to you, okay? And you're not the type of young man I can tell that's going to get in any trouble, but as a young male, the accusation of sexual misconduct is something that you can never, ever, ever run away from, and so I would just say that you always have to make sure that you're putting yourself in a situation or removing yourself from situations where you could be accused of something wrongfully, and you can protect yourself. I used to tell our players, I want you to be gentlemen. So if you're at a party and a young lady's inebriated, I'd like you to be the guy that gets her home, but never take her home alone. Don't take her home with another teammate. Get her home with a friend of hers. To protect yourself from just a false accusation. You can never recover from an accusation of sexual misconduct. The other thing I talked about was just drugs of abuse. It bring you down. You get caught in the wrong situation, or in college football you test positive. That's something that it just stays with you forever. And then I would talk to our guys about academic integrity. When you get to college, if you cheat, if you don't put footnotes in, you're at risk of being expelled, and your career is over. And the reason that these kids would get in trouble and resort to those things is that they would procrastinate. And so have a schedule, stick to it, do your work, stay up on your work, and make sure it's your own work. And then the fourth thing was the dangers of social media. I mean, we see it every single day. We see somebody in athletics saying or posting something on social media that gets them in hot water that they just can't get out of. And so before you press send, you think to yourself, is what I'm about to post or what am I about to like? Because, if you like something, you're endorsing it. And if it's something that has a racial overtone or a religious overtone or a political overtone, sexual overtone, you can't take that like back. So before you ever push a button, you say to yourself, is this going to help me get closer to my goal, or is it going to be another hurdle that I have to get over to get to my goal? So avoid the 4 poisons. That's what I'd say.
I think he's covered. He's on the right track.
I can tell he is, and I see his mom shaking her head. I'm saying you probably told him all those things, right? Yeah.
Let's stick with on a Braden theme one more time. I had a chance to watch him play live stream when I was in Starkville, and he breaks up the middle. And he just outruns everybody. Goes 65, 70 yards for a touchdown. Looks like you're running maybe a 4.3 or 4.4, but coach says you don't quite run that. So, but coach said there's just like with Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice didn't run the fastest 4.4.
No, he did not.
But I tell you, but game speed, there's something about that. So tell us, when you all these years of watching the greats, what are the things when you turn on the tape or you walk on the field and go, oh my gosh, that's a great one? What's the it factors that you've seen over the years with the great players?
Well, I was lucky to work for Bill Walsh, and Bill Walsh would always tell us when we were looking at college athletes, he'd say, don't tell me what they can't do. I can tell you what they can do, but tell me what their redeeming quality is. What can they do that's going to help us win a world championship here with the San Francisco 49ers? And so, you know, it's easy to recognize the things that someone can't do, but what do they do that's different, that stands out when they're performing on the field in a game environment? You know, what do they bring to the table that we are missing, that redeeming quality can help us be champions? And then, you know, in recruiting, for me, it was always important to go deeper. And it's very easy to turn on the film and tell what a guy can and he can't do, how fast he is, how strong he is, how he blocks, you know. Can he catch the ball? Can he throw the ball? Will he tackle? All those things. But to me, there were the intangibles that were so important. And we had a thing we called the Bruin filter, and it was really kind of 5 intangibles that we were looking for. Competitive greatness, you know, and that was a John Wooden. Competitive greatness is, you know, John Wooden defined it as being at your best when your best is required. You know, you're looking for the athlete, that the person, the personality, the character that when your team needed it the most, you could deliver. You could deliver. We were looking for, you know, extreme toughness. And extreme toughness in football, everyone thinks that's the guy that growls and hits and all that. But I'm talking about mental toughness, physical toughness, emotional toughness, the ability to handle the rigors of college football and the academic demands, being able to go out on the field at the Rose Bowl in front of 85,000 people and perform in front of a national television audience as well as those 85,000 people. We were talking about a team ego. You know, someone that has can sacrifice their individual ego for the ego of the team. You know, our motto at UCLA was, we're going to celebrate individual accomplishments as long as they lead to team success. And, you know, I coach Mike Vick, and you know, Mike Vick is obviously a very polarizing figure because of some of the things that he did. But I can tell you this, he's a good person who did some bad things. And I think that he's tried to redeem himself, and he is redeeming himself every day with the way he lives. But he said something to me, to the team actually, after my first win as a head coach. He said, the best player on this team is our team. You know, so someone that embraces that type of mentality is something that we were always looking for. And then just a man of character, you know, which kind of goes towards competitive greatness. But, you know, who are you? You know, who are you as a person? You know, what do you stand for? What do you value? Those were the things that we were looking for. I think that's only 4. I can't remember the 5th one.
That's close enough. It's pretty good.
You know, so besides the physical things, it was the intangibles that I was lucky. I have coached 25 members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and
yeah, I was actually going to ask you that.
Yeah, 25
of the ones that you've been around. Tell us if you got a Mount Rushmore, all the things you just talked about.
Ronnie Lott.
Ronnie Lott would be one.
Jerry Rice. Ronnie Lott.
Ronnie Lott. Jerry
Ronnie
Rice.
Lott. Jerry Rice. I mean, Steve Young, Joe Montana, but Ronnie.
It's pretty good Mount Rushmore. I don't think you have to go any further than that.
Willie. These were, you know, Ronnie Lott. Everything you've ever heard or read about him is true. I mean, he is one of the greatest men I've ever met. His standards of excellence, he holds them to the highest levels at all times. He will not sacrifice them and those around him. You know, the story about him cutting off his finger. You guys know the story about Ronnie Lott cutting off his finger so he could keep playing. Unbelievable.
He had an injury, and the only way he could get.
He had an injury, so he got hurt. And he like tore the ligaments in his little finger, and they say after the game, you know, we're gonna have to do surgery. You're gonna be out a couple of weeks. And he says, well, what's the alternative? They said, well, we could cut it off, and you could play next week. He said, cut it off. So he doesn't even have the tip of his finger. So he's cut it off so he could play the next week. I mean, that's a little extreme. But Ronnie is just a man of tremendous integrity, and not the greatest athlete, not the fastest person, but you know, all those intangibles. I mean, he had them. I mean, he just, and he still does. That's how he lives his life.
All right, wrap it up here. Obviously, you've been watching football every week. You talk about the Final Four. So talk about how you think with what's going on in the games this weekend, Ohio State, Michigan.
Michigan will crush Ohio State. Let me give you. Okay, I'm going to give you
here
my.
we go. Wow.
You want a little synopsis on the Final Four? Okay, I'm going to give you. Here's what I think. Can I take just a couple minutes?
You're ready. It's perfect.
We are okay.
Yeah, we'll end with that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Number one for me is obviously Alabama. I think they're just different. I think Tua. I recruited Tua. I've known him since 8th grade. And he's something special. I mean, this kid, you talk about the physical attributes, but also the intangibles. I mean, he has it all. He is just a special, special person and a special, special player. And if he goes down, they've got Jalen, who's really good too. I got to spend time this summer at the Elite 11 with both of those guys. I was asked this coming Saturday, we have to talk about what we're thankful for in college football. And my answer was, I'm thankful for Jalen Hurd. Is it Jalen Hurd? Hurd. Because he embodies sportsmanship to me. Because this is a guy that was a 2-year starter and did great things at Alabama, was replaced, and he has done nothing but show class and support for Tua this last year. And being together with them this summer, I saw it. And so that's what I'm thankful for, men like him that can be an example to guys like you on how you handle disappointment and adversity. But they've got him in the bank. My concerns with Alabama are, can they protect when a team pressures with 5 or more players on defense? So my second-ranked team for me is Michigan, because I don't think there's a team out there that can threaten Alabama the way Michigan can, and here's why. Michigan plays great defense. They attack on defense. They come after you. They rush the passer, and they have the secondary that maybe can hold up to Alabama's receivers if their pressure doesn't get home. And then Shea Patterson having the year he has, I think he was kind of the missing ingredient that Jim Harbaugh needed to have the success that he's having this year. And I think he's becoming a big-time player. My third team is Clemson. My only concern for Clemson is, will Trevor Lawrence have a rookie moment? A freshman moment. He hasn't had a freshman moment yet. He's been spectacular, and he's probably the best freshman quarterback that I've seen in my time in football. And I coached Josh Rosen, who was the 10th pick of the draft this past year and started for me as a freshman. But this kid is really special. But will he have a freshman moment at the wrong time as the stage gets bigger? They can run the ball, they can throw the ball, and Clemson plays great defense. And then fourth for me is obviously Notre Dame. And I know a lot of people are pushing them up to number 2. I think Ian Book was obviously the change they had to make. There's something that I really can't identify that's holding me back, but I think they're tremendous. People keep asking me about Washington State. How's Washington State get in there? We already talked about the difference between the East Coast, or the Southern athlete, and the West Coast athlete. But the more I watch Washington State, the more impressed I am with them, which is it's like a dagger to the heart since they were our rivals. When I played at Washington. But if they can beat Washington in the Apple Cup, and then they can beat Utah, because Utah and Washington play great defense. Washington's 10th in the country in scoring defense. Utah's 16th in the country in scoring defense. And if Wazoo can win those 2 games, then I would consider them if Notre Dame faltered, which USC's not going to beat Notre Dame. So anyway, that's kind of how I see it.
Is this the way you want to end the Touchdown Club? What a great job. Jim Moore, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim. That was outstanding. Thanks for being here.
It was great to be here.
See you at the Barry Sanders meeting in January. It's been a great year. Thank you, everybody. That was awesome. Let's get you back here and do some photos real quick. Good job. Hey, great having you guys. Thanks so much. Yes. Yeah, good to see you again.
Great job, Joe.
Great day.